Secrets of the Spires introduces a lot of new elements to Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, and as we are on the day of its release, let's discuss some of the new gameplay elements from this extended footage. Avatar Theory here, hope you're doing well and having a fantastic day, and a special thanks to Ubisoft for providing me B-roll for the Secrets of the Spires DLC, and this first look will be broken up into different chapters if you want to jump to a specific section. Firstly, let's look at the new region, which is called the Spires of the Clouded Forest. Upon the opening section of this gameplay, you can see that it does have similar elements to the Clouded Forest, hence the name Spires of the Clouded Forest, but there are many more floating mountains, or spires in this instance, where you can see your character jumping around, being pushed by the mermaid tail, where your character then approaches some sort of strange structure. I don't really know much about this yet, but it does seem like these will probably be scattered throughout the Spires of the Clouded Forest, and you can see behind that there's some sort of floating creature. Again, I'm not entirely sure what these are called, but you'll see plenty of them throughout this gameplay. Then we see our character running and sliding through some sort of canyon where they stop and approach a waterfall, and again you can see many floating mountains in the back and another one of those strange structures in the center there in the background. We then go to a new open area where your character is pushed by the mermaid tail, where they then land on these strange new red plants which acts as a trampoline of sorts, pushing our character in the air again towards one of those strange structures. You can actually see two of them in the background, and we don't really see the character interact with these yet, so I am curious how this will play out in the final DLC. You can also see some colorful plants on both sides, really adding to the environment, and when your character is jumping in the air, you can see that this is quite high up in the air. As your character is walking through the water, you can see there's an area where there's a jet of water or mist being pushed out, which kind of reminds me of certain areas of Iceland. And as your character approaches them, you can see that it pushes your character very high up in the air, where they then approach some sort of new plant, which if hit by an arrow extends outward, where your character can then jump on it using it as a platform. Now, I'm not sure if these retract back inwards after a while or if it stays out permanently. I would guess that it's only a couple of seconds and that there will probably be some platforming in this DLC, but you can also see a section where the character shoots two of them needing to go across, and likely they will probably be unable to use their Ikran in the section. As the character continues to explore, they then find a hole in the ground where a few echo stalkers jump out, kind of ambushing your character. I really like this idea, and I do hope we see more of these throughout the DLC. The character then goes through a canyon which is lit up by bioluminescent lights, of course always stunning in this game, and as they look upwards towards the end, you can really see the detail inside this cave. We are then presented with an open section really showcasing this new area where your character is flying on the Ikran, and it does look like the Ikran has a new outfit, and if you zoom in closely you can actually see there's something on the back of the Ikran. At first I wasn't really sure what that is, but later on in the video this will be demonstrated in combat. It then transitions back to inside the cave where your character is on top of Ikran going through the cave. I don't believe we've really seen this in the base game, so it'll certainly be interesting to maneuver and fly around in tighter areas, avoiding certain obstacles. At the end of the cave, you can see that you are presented with this open, beautiful area holding many mysteries and possible dangers, which one of them specifically I'll go into detail later on in the video. As your character is exiting the cave, you can see it shows the region Spires of the Clouded Forest, which gives me an indication that you're probably going to have to go through a specific cave to reach this area, and as I said, it certainly looks like a stunning one. It also shows off the area during daytime, which looks just as beautiful, and if you look carefully at the back there, at the mountains right at the back, that does look a little bit like snow. It could of course just be textures that didn't load in properly, or the level of detail that changes the further you are away from certain objects, but it honestly does look like snow on top of a mountain. I guess we'll have to wait until the final DLC releases to find out. They also show the character walking through the new forest area, which again looks absolutely stunning, and I really cannot cannot wait to get my hands on this DLC. The new DLC will also introduce us to a new clan and character, as we can see our character walking through a cave before entering a new area, which is called the Sheltering Falls. Although we do not know much about the new clan or characters, we can see that the Sheltering Falls is going to be a new home area where you will likely get quests, buy some items, and the main point of interest in Secrets of the Spires.
See how the Sky people threaten this place too? Their greed pushes them across Pandora.
I learned their weapons long ago. I know their weaknesses. Let me join your fight. Emerai mentioned you teach the Kametire how to navigate the skies here.
It is much more than that. Our trials are about precision and agility. All require the greatest of trust between you and your Ikran.
I hope you entered undetected. Any blunder will put us all in danger.
Your brother, Haurvine, sent me to warn you.
Of what? We are moving in silence, striking each enemy before they can alert their allies.
One of the highlights of this DLC is aerial combats, especially a new mounted weapon, in this case being a mounted crossbow. You can see here the character crafting the mounted crossbow, and you can see it does 125 damage, is an exquisite mounted crossbow, quite big, and once it is crafted, it does 30% weak spot damage, 8% RDA damage, and 15% stealth damage. And the description states, quote, "The mounted crossbow is an innovation of the Keawa Kamatiri that adds unrivaled firepower to aerial encounter." When your character uses this crossbow, it has this automated firing mechanism, so it is quite fast in combat, and in between all of this action, this aerial combat, there's also these floating plants which looks like explode if you get too close to it or lets off some sort of mist. But aside from the mounted crossbow, at the very bottom there, you can see some sort of icon that if the player presses L1 and R1 on the triggers together, fires a diversion from that black box on top of the Ikran. Earlier, I pointed out this black box, and it seems like it's some sort of defense mechanism if missiles are fired towards your Ikran, which then deflects the enemy attack and then refills over time. So probably you cannot spam this ability. You have to wait until it refills until you can use it again. An interesting new mechanic nonetheless. It also gives us a clear indication of this new outfit for your Ikran. And again, looking at this one image, right at the back there at the mountains, it certainly does look like snow. So I am wondering if we can explore those areas and what it will bring to the game. Of course, this aerial attack looks like it takes place in a new RDA location where there's probably some RDA bases, which will likely play out similarly to taking out the bases in the base game, as it doesn't seem like anything different on that end. We do see the player taking out an aerial convoy, which is part of an objective, so likely there will be a couple of them throughout the DLC.
I'm heading back to her now.
As the gameplay continues, the player then faces off against a new aerial predator called the Chiroptera, which seems as big, if not slightly bigger than your Ikran, and it almost looks like a giant bat. We don't really know much about this creature just yet, but as the player is facing off against the creature inside a cave, I do wonder if this will be their nesting area. We can actually see the player facing off against a couple of them inside this cave, again indicating that this is probably where they're located most of the time.
This must be the Elder's nest.
We get some news segments of your character fighting off against the RDA, but no real RDA enemies has been seen just yet. You see your character facing off against the amp suit with the shield and the mounted Gatling gun, which we've seen in the previous DLC. It also seems like there's no new melee interactions. I was hoping for some melee action or some new melee animations when you take down an enemy in a stealthily way, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. I don't think that'll ever happen in the game. It was a big request by the community, but it seems like the only thing you can do is punch or slide and punch the RDA, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any sort of melee interaction. You do see your character using a shotgun, shocking some of the amp suits, hitting them in the weak spots from behind. Nothing really that we haven't seen before. No real amp suit that we haven't seen before. I was carefully looking at all of the smaller detail, but it doesn't seem like there's any new amp suits, at least from the gameplay B-roll that I was provided. Maybe in the final DLC there will be some new RDA enemies, some new amp suits that we'll be fighting, but it doesn't seem like any new ones was shown off just here. It just seems like gameplay that we've seen before, that we've experienced before. Some new locations, of course, because there will be new RDA areas with new locations that we will need to take out and that we will explore in the DLC. But again, nothing too new from the side of the RDA. It seems like this DLC is, of course, going to be focused more on aerial combat, because your Ikran and aerial combat is going to be the main focus. So you can pretty much expect more of the same from the RDA. We do, however, see a Valkyrie and your character jumping on top of the Valkyrie to take it out, much like Jake Sully did in the first Avatar movie. So this was fun to witness, and I do hope we see more of these kind of encounters. As mentioned, the main focus of this DLC will be your Ikran and the new Ikran Skills, and immediately one of the new things that I noticed is an Ikran Smash, which sees your Ikran using its tail and lower part, launching it forward, smashing whatever obstacle is in front of you. In this instance, the player used it to discover certain locations, this being the Echoing Cavern, but you can also use this in combat, smashing aerial vehicles, which certainly will come in handy. The player also uses that ability to attack amp suits, making your Ikran more useful in combat, but it does appear that you can in fact now call your Ikran when launching off a mermaid tail, indicating that you don't specifically need to be high up in the air, thus you can use it more frequently. In this gameplay we also see the character approaching these flying plants, and when they get closer to it, they use the Ikran Smash ability to essentially gather materials, and it seems like these floating plants are in fact called mature sunrise lanterns, which gives you the sunrise lantern dew ingredient. The character then flies through a valley surrounded by those plants which we saw earlier in the video where your character was jumping from, and then we see the player using this smash ability to destroy RDA towers, which seems to emit lightning, and it kind of reminds me of a Tesla coil. So I do wonder if the RDA perhaps has found a way to control the weather in some sense, or maybe because the tower is so high up, it of course being the highest point, that is where the lightning will hit. During this gameplay we also see the Valkyrie at the back there, probably the one that you take out later in the game. During this section we can see the character jumping off the Ikran, essentially gliding with precision, as they actually say it once they get back on top of the Ikran.
We did it! What did you think of my gliding with precision, huh?
The final bit of the gameplay shows your character following a specific path, but right at the end when they reach a cave, it shows your Ikran launching your character into the air, which is also a new ability, and again one we've seen in the first Avatar movie, especially towards the end when Jake jumps on top of the Valkyrie. This will certainly be a useful ability, but for now this is all that's been shown from the new abilities. As Secrets of the Spires is releasing on November the 28th, there's certainly a lot more to uncover, and I will have many more videos in the coming days, but based on this extended gameplay breakdown, which part of Secrets of the Spires are you most excited about? Again, I would like to thank Ubisoft for providing me B-roll, and for more Avatar content, have a look at the rest of my channel. Until next time, have a fantastic day and stay safe.